chilly today. D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Adam Vingen and Derek Mason here with you live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators are preparing to take on the Seattle Kraken tonight at 7. All covered here on 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick will join us momentarily once he finishes his pregame responsibilities.
Yes.
There's a chill in the air, Derek, and it's not just in this building. It was in the low 50s when I stepped outside of my house this morning to head down to Bridgestone Arena. It feels like hockey weather. I know you think I'm nuts for liking this weather. This is my favorite weather. A little overcast, a little chilly. It's the best.
I dislike this weather. I really do. I'm not going to say I hate it, but I truly dislike it. That's why I have not ventured further up north, because of the weather. But it just seems like it keeps creeping and creeping and creeping south, meaning the cold weather.
You're from Michigan.
Yeah, and and you are absolutely right. And I don't want to be in Michigan. If I wanted to be in Michigan, I would go to Michigan. Okay,
but
I would go live in Michigan.
You and Joe have been southernized.
Yes.
Exactly. I like the warm weather, and I like the seasons change. But even with the seasons change, it doesn't stay winter or cold for a very long time here. That's why I like it.
Well, I really enjoy this weather. It doesn't need to get much colder than this. It ultimately will. But to me, this screams hockey weather. And the Predators are 0-2 to start the season with losses at home to the Dallas Stars. They were shut out on the road on Saturday in Detroit, speaking of Michigan, against the Red Wings, and they will take on the Kraken tonight looking for their first win of the season. We had a Monday Night Football game last night. The Titans' next opponent, the Buffalo Bills, escaped New York. Well, a different part of New York. Well, technically New Jersey. They escaped New Jersey back to New York with a 23-20 win to improve to 4-2. But the big news of the morning does involve the team that lost that game last night. According to multiple reports, the New York Jets have traded for Davante Adams to reunite Adams with Aaron Rodgers. And according to The Athletic, the Raiders will receive a conditional third draft pick that can become a second-round pick based on Adams' performance. Specifically, the conditional third rounder becomes a second rounder if Adams makes first team or second team All-Pro, or if Adams is on the active roster for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. So I would say it's going to be pretty difficult at this stage for the Jets to receive that second round pick, or excuse me, for the Raiders to receive that second round pick. I'm not sure Adams is going to be an All-Pro this year. Maybe when he's reunited with Aaron Rodgers, we'll see. And the Jets are now 2-4 after losing last night. So despite the fact that I did predict for them to win the AFC East, I'm not sure we're going to see them in the championship game or the Super Bowl. Maybe Davante Adams changes all of that. But Davante Adams switching addresses again and reuniting with Aaron Rodgers in New York/New Jersey. Derek, what did you think of this trade, specifically the price that the Jets paid to acquire Davante Adams?
You knew it was coming eventually. We're weeks away from the trade deadline.
About 3 weeks away.
Yeah. And this has been, the rumor throughout the the poorly kept secret about Davante Adams potentially going to the Jets to reunite with Aaron Rodgers. That was the most poorly held secret in the world. It was just a matter of time before he joined up with his former quarterback, and they're making it happen. In regards to the compensation, I mean, it's a third that can be a conditional second. That's not bad for a guy that is still a high level wide receiver. Now, the numbers don't reflect. I think a lot of that has to do with the quarterback carousel they've been on, but the numbers don't reflect, who he is as a player still in this league. So, will it change the Jets' fortune? I'm not sure. After watching Aaron Rodgers yesterday, he still looked off, and that has nothing to do with the wide receivers. He's taking too many sacks, and some of it is not on him. And he's, sort of uncharacteristically thrown too many interceptions. That's one thing that Aaron Rodgers did better than anyone in the history of the National Football League, playing quarterback that many snaps. He was the best at not turning the football over. And for some reason, this season has been opposite of who he has been thus far as a quarterback. So will this change the fortunes of the New York Jets? I'm not sure. Their defense still is a strong unit, but they can't stop the run. And I don't know why they didn't allow Josh Allen, but man, the defense you were playing, that defensive end, your sole responsibility should have been, I am standing right here so nobody gets outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And you allow Josh Allen, who is looking to run a lot of times, and he's one of the best quarterbacks at running. Why? Because he's so tough to bring down. It's 3rd and 2, or 3rd and 3. You think they were going to let him throw the ball? They said, listen, if you don't see it, quickly run. And that's what he did. Basically, he ran. So does it change the Jets' fortunes when Adams get there? Yeah, but not the fortunes as far as how they will be perceived as the season goes. This still is I think, 8-9 win team with or without Davante. Well, there may be a 7-8 win team without Davante Adams. Now they're an 8-9 win team. Will that get them in the playoffs? I don't know.
This feels like putting a Band-Aid on the type of injury that needs dozens of stitches.
Yes.
For lack of a better way to phrase that. It does feel like something to appease Aaron Rodgers, an attempt to save the season, a Hail Mary, if you will, to save the Jets season. Adams has missed the past 3 games with a hamstring injury. So who knows when he'll be available to play. According to The Athletic, the holdup to any Adams trade was the Raiders' insistence on getting back a 2nd-round pick, which they compromised on, plus the acquiring team paying the entirety of Adams' remaining 2024 salary, which they did not. The Jets will pay the remainder of Davante Adams' salary, so the Raiders are completely off the hook. The Saints and Steelers also inquired about acquiring the star receiver, while the Bills were monitoring the situation. So we'll see if that works. As I said, it just feels like a last-ditch effort to salvage this season. The Jets had an opportunity, if they had won last night, to tie the Bills at 3-3 in the AFC East. They are now 2-4. But when I saw this trade, Derek, one thing that popped into my head as it relates to the Tennessee Titans is, well, if this is what Davante Adams is worth, what do you think DeAndre Hopkins is worth? Because DeAndre Hopkins is not worth more than Davante Adams. But if one thing you can look at when a trade like this happens is it sets the market.
Mm-hmm.
It provides a blueprint of, okay, this caliber of receiver was worth this much in a trade. So how much could this receiver be worth in a trade? And I think we would both agree at this stage of his career, DeAndre Hopkins is lower on the totem pole, so to speak, than Davante Adams. And if Davante Adams is a third-round pick that could become a second, what do you think that makes DeAndre Hopkins worth in the potential trade, assuming the Titans are sellers at the deadline, which with each passing week, it looks like they are going to need to become sellers at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, that's not I'm not sure if that's a, black or white answer. I think it just depends on who the team is and what's the outlook for this team if indeed they do get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Is it a playoff team that just needs that one extra piece? Maybe one of their wide receivers went down and they need that piece to help keep things above water at the receiver room. Well, that may bring that may bring on a little bit more of a, hey, we want a fifth for them. You're in dire need of them, so give us a fifth, possibly a conditional fourth. So it just depends on what the need is and how dire the team is. If it's just a straight up trade team, like say for instance the Baltimore Ravens, they don't need a receiver, but having a veteran receiver that you can rely on is an addition. It will help. It won't hurt. So you go to Baltimore and you say, well, you got the second best quarterback in the NFL. Maybe a fifth. Can you give us a fifth for him? Because Baltimore really don't need him. The guy they really need, they got in the offseason.
Yes.
They don't really need Davante Adams, but having him would be a plus.
Mm-hmm.
So you say a fifth. Baltimore may come back and say, you know what? We really don't need him. We would like to have him. How about a 6th-round draft pick?
You know what team I keep thinking about as a fit for DeAndre Hopkins, and the team that was mentioned in that report from The Athletic? The Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers could absolutely use someone like DeAndre Hopkins. They have George Pickens, but after that, their receiving core is a bit shallow.
Yeah.
They've got Calvin Austin. They have Van Jefferson.
Yeah.
I feel like the Steelers could really use someone of DeAndre Hopkins's caliber, of his stature, to play complementary football alongside George Pickens. And that's a 4-2 team fighting for first place in the AFC North with the Ravens. I for some reason, I'd have to do more digging into it, but on the surface, it feels like a perfect fit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because Pittsburgh need another option on the outside. It's going to come to a point where Justin Fields is playing pretty good football, but as the season wears and teams start to figure things out with what you're trying to do offensively. And listen, Arthur Smith is one of the best offensive coordinators in the league.
I hadn't even thought about that connection.
What
as well.
He likes doing in regards to how he uses the play action, how he uses the quarterback's mobility to set up things in the passing game. But if you're Pittsburgh, do you chance it by going out and get a guy? Even though I think it's a good fit, I really do. But how much does he change your team? Considerably. How much did he change? He gives you potentially another weapon.
Yes.
Especially in the red zone. Red zone and third down. He is perfect for you. So how do you implement him into your offense? Knowing that you got Pickens, your running back is starting to run well now.
They've got a solid tight end and Pat Freiermuth.
Exactly. So how do you then get him immersed into the offense very quickly? It's not a bad deal. I mean, you would only have to pay him this season. And if you choose to sign him back, you can sign him back to a much lesser price. So much less price. So, if the Titans were to do that, what would Pittsburgh be willing to give up to get him? Because they're not in the position that the Ravens are in. The Ravens are good, but having Hop would be okay. For them, it would be like, yeah, give them to us.
If they want to
to,
keep pace
Yeah.
with the Ravens atop the AFC North,
then they would probably need a guy.
then they
like
probably
Hop.
need someone like DeAndre Hopkins. And I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of the Steelers scheme.
Exactly.
But on the surface, adding DeAndre Hopkins to a team that has one legitimate receiver in George Pickens, and as you said, they've got backs that can catch. They've got a solid tight end. You know, Arthur Smith, we know what Arthur Smith can do for an offense. We saw it here in Tennessee. It feels like, again, on the surface, if I were saying, what's a team that would look good with DeAndre Hopkins? We talked about the Chiefs a lot, a few weeks ago. But the Steelers, especially since they were reportedly sniffing around Devontae Adams, clearly they're looking for a receiver. I might have one for you here that could help you.
Yeah, and Kansas City, Juju Smith-Schuster is their DeAndre Hopkins. That's who he is. He's that guy that can get the dirty catches, that can, get the third down yardage when you need it. I think he had 10 catches last week, somewhere around there. So he's their DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have him in Pittsburgh. They don't have a DeAndre Hopkins type player. And he may work better in Pittsburgh. Why? Because Pittsburgh is running the football well, and teams have to decide whether to stop their running back or stop their quarterback from running the football. So you set up this dynamic where you got to pay attention to my run game and my quarterback, and that may open up some things for that second receiver, to get open. And then a second receiver obviously would be D-Hop. So he may just work well in an offense that's predicated on play action and running the football.
Andy on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, asks, why would we trade our current best receiver? Well, the Titans are 1-4. They're staring down 1-6. They're going to Buffalo and Detroit. DeAndre Hopkins does not figure to be a part of this team past this season. So if you can get an asset for him, you absolutely do it.
Okay, you said, well, the texter said, why would you trade your number one?
Another texter says, if the Titans trade Hopkins, that just tells you that Callahan has given up on Will Levis. I wouldn't go that far.
That's not.
I think you just have to look at it. You just have to look at it as a business decision. If DeAndre Hopkins is not a part of your plans moving forward, and the team has zero shot of making the playoffs, if a contending team, another texter suggests Buffalo and Green Bay as places for DeAndre Hopkins. Well, let's just use the Steelers because we've been talking about the Steelers. If the Steelers come to the Titans and say, we need DeAndre Hopkins, we need to keep pace with the Ravens atop the AFC North, we have an opportunity to challenge for a division title, we'll give you a conditional 5th that could become a 4th if Hopkins meets certain conditions. Jump all over that. You mean Hopkins is not helping this team this season. And as we talked about with Calvin Ridley, it's not all on DeAndre Hopkins. A lot of it has to do with the offense and Will Levis. But if DeAndre Hopkins is not going to help your team, then you should get something back for him if you can.
Well, if Pittsburgh or anybody else came to the Titans with that, I'm sure the Titans would ask for more because you're coming to me. I didn't solicit you. You're coming to me. So,
right.
What about a 4th? Which Pittsburgh will say, no, we don't know. How about a 5th? But if you're coming to me, I'm asking for the most.
Of course.
I'm asking for the most I believe I think I could get. But then if you say, no, not a 4th, but a 5th, that can potentially and conditionally be a 4th, then now the table is set for a potential trade for him to go to Pittsburgh. But getting back to the question, and you wouldn't be trading your best receiver. Your best receiver is the guy that you just paid all that money to. You need to find a way to get him the ball. That's who your best receiver is. Because if you look at the numbers,
Hopkins
one has 175, one has 141. I mean, one is averaging 15 yards, which is Calvin Ridley. One is averaging 12. Both got a touchdown. Your guy that you want to get on, your best, is Calvin Ridley. That's how the hierarchy should be, considering how much you paid him, what he was able to do last year, how young he is, and he's still a guy that can go get it.
Right.
Y'all just haven't been able to make it work with him and a quarterback. So you're potentially trading a guy that you feel, outside of Calvin Ridley, that you feel you can get the most for.
Right.
Not necessarily whether he's better or not. Who can we get the most for? And they're going to try to get the most for Hop and not Ridley, because they know once they get a quarterback underneath center that can really drive this bus, then Calvin Ridley will become more of a factor in this, because they want to push the ball down the field. They want to have a big play offense. Hop is a damn good receiver, but he doesn't help you push the ball down the field.
One texter asks if you're feeling better from yesterday after the one caller tried to compare Will Levis to Patrick Mahomes. That was the best radio rant / vent ever.
Yeah, it's just, listen, I understand those that are, hell-bent on Will Levis. It's that season right now. Politics is going on, whichever side you are for.
I believe we are 3 weeks from Election Day.
No matter what your candidate do or say, you are going to ride or die with your candidate. No matter how many times you've asked for policy and they haven't given it to you, no matter how many times your guy has said some things that have been so off the wall outrageous and whatnot, it doesn't matter, because y'all like who y'all like. That's just how it is. So no matter what Will Levis does, I understand that people are going to and they're going to try to find every justification on why Will Levis should be the quarterback. It is the season for justification. That's what this season is, Adam. It's the season of justification. I'm gonna justify why you should keep Will Levis as the quarterback. That's what some of these fans are saying. And they're saying it in the political realm as well. But when you try to compare, even in your justification, when you try to compare your quarterback to a future Hall of Famer, a guy that just won 3 championships, you will lose that argument every freaking time.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans all show long. Your thoughts on trading DeAndre Hopkins. We saw Devontae Adams today traded reportedly from the Raiders to the Jets for a conditional 3rd-round pick that could become a 2nd-round pick, if I have that right. Lots of conditions, too many conditions. Either way, thoughts on potential trades for the Titans. The trade deadline, I believe, is about 3 weeks away. The Titans are 1-4. They could be staring at 1-6. So there could be a lot of movement with the Tennessee Titans in the next few days. But coming up next, Tim Hasselbeck will join us, by the way. Tim Hasselbeck, coach of the 8-0 Ensworth Tigers. Had to get that plug in there. The undefeated Tim Hasselbeck will join us. We will talk Will Levis. We'll talk quarterbacking around the NFL. And by the way, tune into 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU football. The Blue Raiders will take on Kennesaw State at Floyd Stadium. Pregame starts at 5:30 p.m. and kickoff is at 7. MTSU football coverage on 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville is presented by Sloan's Motorcycle ATV.
Derek Mason here, and if you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtiger.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike is worth to you, people. And I do as well. So they will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycling community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support events or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. And I repeat that, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit their website at lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman Infusion, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
Bingen and Donick, 1025, 1063. The game. Adam Bingen and Derek Mason here at Bridgestone Arena Barrel House. The Predators will take on the Seattle Kraken tonight at 7. But before that, on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, our friend Tim Hasselbeck, by the way, the undefeated head coach of the Ensworth Tigers at 8-0. How does that sound, Tim?
That sounds really good. I mean, it's like the pressure keeps mounting, though. Like, sounds great, but yeah, no, it's been good. It's been good. Victories are a lot more fun than defeats, that's for sure. The guys have done great, and we're on our bye week, so stress level is down. Stress level is down just a little bit.
Ensworth off to its best start since 2013, but off this week, so we won't pressure Tim much more. We'll pick it back up next week. But I want to ask you a question about Will Levis. I did some research this morning. So Will Levis, his average yard per attempt against Indianapolis was 3.5. That is the 5th fewest in a game by any quarterback this season. And these are the 4 quarterbacks that had fewer yards per attempt in a game this season. Bo Nix twice, Caleb Williams in his first start against the Titans, and Bryce Young, who, of course, has been benched in Carolina. Not good company to keep. And Brian Callahan was asked yesterday many pointed questions about Will Levis, including if the ultra-conservative game plan for Will Levis suggested that maybe the verdict is in for Brian Callahan on what kind of quarterback Will Levis is. But when you hear those numbers, 3.5 yards per attempt, 5th fewest in a game this season, and the only quarterbacks who have had a game with fewer, Bo Nix twice, Caleb Williams in his first career start, and Bryce Young, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not going well. That's what comes to mind for me, right? It's not going as planned, and I think that you're smart to bring up the Brian Callahan, response to the conservative nature of how he's called plays. I mean, basically saying like, yeah, we're doing that because we feel like we need to, and yeah, it's hard to consider that anything but an indictment on how Will Levis has played. And I think what probably strikes me the most about that is that I think how we got here with Levis on it wasn't all bad. It wasn't like, oh, we don't trust him to throw the ball down the field. It was those brutal mistakes that started to like impact your confidence in his ability to do the right thing with the football. And then I think that turned into calling the game differently. Does that make sense? Like, it's almost like, hey, we've put handcuffs on it because of these really bad mistakes. And it was like, and so I'm not saying the coach has done something wrong, but I'm saying like, that's what making bad decisions ultimately does to a play caller. Is it kind of paralyzes you. It makes you, hesitate and be unsure, and quite frankly, call the games the way that they've had to call games.
Is the flip side to that, though, Tim, that by handcuffing Will Levis to avoid the catastrophic mistake, which he has, he has turnovers in every game this season, even the game he didn't finish because he was injured. I'm just wondering if the flip side of that is you're not allowing Will Levis perhaps to do the things that got him to the NFL. Does that make sense? It's sort of like a double, I feel, is it a double-edged sword in that regard?
Yeah, but like at what price? I think
right.
That's the trick in it. It's like, yeah, I think you're right. There's merit to that. But the cost of saying like, yeah, hey, let's cut it loose, man. Like, Brett Favre this thing, like, go make it happen. Like, that's where I don't know that you can't afford to do that, right? Like, you are trying to do the best that you can to help your team win each and every week. And, I think that has to come above player development. It's a little bit like, I'm thinking of an example. Like, look at Pittsburgh right now. Like, Pittsburgh right now is definitely running Justin Fields more than they would other quarterbacks. They're not saying like, hey, let's make sure we get him, 15 traditional drop back passes this week. Like, they're not doing that. What they're doing is they're saying, all right, how do we win this week? It's like, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have all these design runs for our quarterback. We're going to have him not lose the game. We're going to play good defense, and, we're going to look up and have a pretty good record as, we start to head into, really meaningful football. So that's the challenge. And I think you're trying to win football games. And so his development as a passer, as a quarterback, as a decision maker can't come in front of that.
From one first-time head coach to another, I'm curious for your opinion on Brian Callahan in this regard. He and Will Levis are inseparably linked. the performance of Will Levis, the development of Will Levis is tied to Brian Callahan. And listening to his news conference yesterday, he was answering questions as diplomatically as he could without saying anything that could be construed as throwing his quarterback under the bus. But what do you like? This is a significant challenge for a first-time head coach, managing a quarterback with a lot of expectation who is not meeting those expectations. Derek has talked a lot about how Brian Callahan handles this and what it could mean for the rest of the roster and how they perceive Brian Callahan. I'm just wondering what you think of the challenge in front of Brian Callahan as he attempts to navigate a very difficult situation.
Well, I'll say that fortunately, our quarterback, who's my son, has not made a lot of bad decisions.
That would make for some awkward car rides home, I think.
Exactly.
So he's made it easy on me, so a lot more touchdown passes than interceptions. That's been decision making's not been.
Son, you can Uber home from the game. I gotta go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's really hard. Because he clearly, I mean, just think back to how assured Brian Callahan was when he said, like, no, Will Levis is starting quarterback. It's not Mason Rudolph. Like, I think. Like, I know it caught your guys' attention. It certainly caught mine. Yeah, I think you've got to be. I think you've got to be really careful. And so I think it's really hard to be a head coach when your quarterback's not playing well. I mean, I think that's the reality of it. And I think you look around the league, that's challenging. Like, I think you can almost make the argument that in the National Football League, it's impossible to be viewed as like a good head coach with bad quarterback play. Like, I'm just like trying to like race through it now in my mind. Like, Mike Tomlin maybe is doing it, but like, look, Mike McCarthy's under all this heat. Like, quarterback's not playing well. Like, Kevin Stefanski may end up losing his job. Like, Deshaun Watson's not playing well. Like, it just, I think that many cases, like, it boils down to that. It's just such an easy narrative to follow. And then think of guys that have had success coaching the National Football League for a long time. They've had consistent or good quarterback play. So I actually think it's mission impossible. I don't think you can have a quarterback playing poorly and people think, hey, this coach is doing a great job.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and undefeated head coach at Ensworth High School here in town. Tim, this whole, and listen, I'm not asking or calling for Brian Callahan to lose his job by any means. No, I'm not doing that. But do you think that these GMs and these owners will start to realize, like, listen, okay, I understand that you are, say in Brian Callahan's situation. Yeah, you were the offensive coordinator, but you didn't call plays. Yes, we want you as our head coach because we believe that everywhere you've been, you've learned from those types of systems. And you can go down a list of guys he's been closely associated to. And that makes for a really good resume. But it hasn't been many times, at least recently, where the offensive coordinator / head coach has worked out. Now, we know it's worked out with Andy. Andy's, to me, is the greatest play caller in all of football. So he can do it and be the head coach. Kyle Shanahan has been able to do it, but it's been because I think they've had really good quarterback play. But now Brock Purdy is starting to struggle, and they don't have Christian McCaffrey. So he hasn't been as successful as he was in previous years. All of that to say this: when you hire these head coaches, maybe just maybe you should allow them to be CEOs first, and then take over the play calling duties possibly the very next year. Because just managing a team has to be hard, and if you're the play caller and you're the head coach, how well are you managing the team on game day? Because you're solely, concentrated on the next play. What do I have to do the next play? You're not concentrating on the team as a whole as head coaches that are not neither defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator. They are able to be the CEO of the whole team, even on game day.
Hey, listen, we had a situation this last week where the referees, God bless them, they were doing their job, but we had an intentional grounding and they cheated us it down. Well, I'm not proud. Like, I lost my mind. Okay. Like, I lost my mind. And like, so I'm like trying to like talk to the officials about it and that type of thing. And like, sure enough, like, so I send the play in. Like, Matthew calls the plays. My brother Matthew calls the plays. I send the play in. But like, I just had gotten so much in head coach mode of being like, hey, like trying to address the situation with the officials that we end up getting a delay of game because like I'm still losing my mind over over something that happened, right? Mm-hmm. And so like it's a a high school example of like, yeah, like there's a lot. I think I've said to you guys before, John Fox, who I worked with for a long time and have a lot of respect for, he became a head coach because he was an incredible defensive coordinator with the New York Giants. And he said, you become a head coach because you're really good at sitting in a dark room, watching film and devising a plan and putting it in place to beat your opponent every week. And then you become a head coach, and that skill that you developed as a coordinator, you don't do that anymore. In fact, you just, he used different terms, but he said you just shovel manure, all day long as a head coach, just doing other things that are head coach responsibilities. And so I think that I do think that it's a challenge. Now, do I think that guys can handle it? Yeah. Like Brian Callahan, you talk to anybody, is like uber smart. Like one of the smartest, coaches most guys have ever been around. And typically when that happens, guys can handle, the responsibilities in the game flow, management, communication, all that stuff that happens. So, but I do think it is important to always be surrounded with people that you can trust, because you'll get distracted with other responsibilities as the head coach.
Yeah, and I brought it up because, I'm not saying Brian Callahan is doing a bad job, because I don't think he has. I think he's working with what he has, and the quarterback right now, to me, doesn't seem like the guy, but he got to try to make it work, because I believe the guy, he's the owner's guy or the GM's guy. So you got to try to figure out how to make it work. But that responsibility is so huge. Like, coming in, I know they hired you because of what you can potentially do as an offensive coordinator, but you still got to be the head coach of this team, and you still got to try to make decisions based upon the team and not the quarterback. And it seems like maybe he want to bench the quarterback, maybe he doesn't, but everything is geared toward you making the decision based upon the quarterback and not your team.
Yeah, and I think if we're probably all being realistic about the situation, gets hired here, and I think the question is, all right, what are you doing? Is Will Levis going to be your guy? You're going to try to make it work with Levis, or we're going to try to go get somebody? Okay, who could you go get? What would even be possible in terms of what you go get, and would that make sense? And I think that, like, listen, Kirk Cousins wasn't going to make sense here in Tennessee, right? And so probably ultimately, like, the decision that was made, between Brian Callahan and Ran and what their plan was going to be was like, look, he's our best option this year in terms of where we pick, what we're going to do, like all of that stuff. Like, that's our best option. And so, like, let's see what the development looks like. And I think that's what this is. And if it continues to go poorly, like, the reality is, look, there'll be in a market for a quarterback. It'll be different next year. And that's unfortunately, it's a terrible thing to be saying right after week 6, but like, I don't know. Like if you or I were the GM, like, were we going to do anything differently? Like, were we going to get Joe Flacco? Like, probably not.
Yeah,
right?
Because
and
you don't want to put pressure on who you want to believe can be your starter, the minute he does something wrong or
Yeah.
consistently wrong, people are going to be screaming for Joe Flacco. So
yeah,
you
and
don't
I
go
think
get
the
him.
other thing, we don't you wouldn't want to do is you wouldn't want to like go through the year and be like, well, we played Flacco because we thought that he gave us the best chance to win, and now we know nothing about whether or not our young guy can play. So like, unfortunately, like I don't want to say like it was like punting on the season again, like week 6, like all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, like this was like, look, we're going into this year trying to figure out like, can you be the guy? Like and we're still trying to find that out.
Tim
We have
Hasselbeck.
more information, but
Yep.
we're still trying to find it out.
Sorry there, Tim. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, Ensworth head coach. Enjoy your off week. Try not to yell at any officials next week.
You're undefeated off week.
You're undefeated off week.
I mean, we all make mistakes.
Hey, I
Hey.
heard they screaming Super Bowl for you, man, around town.
I'm using this as my public apology to the officials. For you.
That is fair.
We did get cheated it down. I think we gave it to Colorado, however many years that was ago. That's what we've done.
Oh, man.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll chat next week.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Yep.
Tim Hasselbeck joining us. Brian Callahan also lost his cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if Brian Callahan can do it, so can Tim. Because you know what? Tim is undefeated. There's a little bit more leeway for undefeated coaches.
There's only one undefeated head coach around these parts, all right?
That's right. That's right. 615-737-1025. Will Levis, speaking of Will Levis, he drew the ire of a very prominent person yesterday, and we'll get to that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and soon to be joined by Willie Donick, 1025-1063, The Game.
Football season is back, and what better way to bet on big games than to do it on Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee that is bringing sports betting to a whole new level, and I mean that literally. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $100 no danger wager. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. And now that football season has started, Zen Sports has launched their revamped betting platform for both college football and the NFL. And what's better? With their new look, Zen Sports will be offering daily promotions, including odd boosts, same-game parlays, no danger wagers, and much more. Zen Sports also offers a one-of-a-kind VIP reward program. If you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, and even sport book bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only, so if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. So what are you waiting for, football fans? Start betting with Zen Sports, where you will receive true odds on all parlays and an enhanced experience for all. Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
You must be new to the Will Levis party because if you
He's
know
been watching
anything
the
about
mayonnaise
this party, they're
commercials.
not very good.
How the hell he get these commercials then, man?
He eats the mayonnaise.
See, that's the problem with America.
He's got taste
That's the
buds
problem
like
with
Dan
America
Orlowski.
right there. Right there's a problem with America. We got to stop rewarding mediocrity. You understand what I'm trying to say? You should be able to accomplish it. How you gonna get a mayonnaise commercial? You understand? And you looking like, and you playing like that?
Right.
I mean, come on.
We got to
Come
get
on.
Lucius Coming up.
Dallas.
That was Stephen A. Smith on First Take yesterday. They were discussing Calvin Ridley's comments after the Titans lost to the Colts. But then the conversation quickly turned to, of course, Will Levis's mayonnaise commercials, which is something we knew would be a problem if he struggled. It happens not just to Will Levis. It happens to athletes of all kinds. Here's a perfect example. Travis Kelce was struggling at the beginning of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs. Didn't matter that he just helped the team win a Super Bowl last year. It was great in that playoff run. Mm-hmm. Spending too much time with Taylor Swift, too much time on that podcast, too much time trying to be an actor, not focusing on football. That's what happens when athletes who have interests outside of their sport struggle. And Will Levis was firmly in the crosshairs of anybody who thought that, hey, if he struggles, these mayonnaise commercials are not going to look so good. And Stephen A. Smith, I think, spoke for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, especially people in this town. Listen, I don't begrudge anyone that is trying to, profit off of their image. And because I understand in this profession, a lot of people are getting paid because of what you do. So why not you get some compensation for doing commercials and stuff like that? Because best believe what they're paying you, they're getting back 20 times fold in a commercial. So it is what it is. But you got to understand too, when you are doing these things, and if you're not winning, they become what people deem a distraction. Then you allow individuals like Stephen A. Smith, who's been around, sports, damn near his whole life.
And you think Stephen A. Smith is paying attention to Will Levis on a regular basis?
He's not paying attention to Will Levis on a regular basis. So when you are not playing well and you're sort of seeming to benefit from your likeness, people people have a problem with that. Listen, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but listen, they ran Baker Mayfield out of Cleveland because why? His commercials, but he wasn't playing well on the field. Right. And they got tired of that. That's they didn't necessarily run him out because of that, but the minute he stopped playing well and these commercials were playing right during a timeout when he just threw an interception, right? People are like, seriously, Baker, what are you doing? And I thought Baker, I love Baker as a quarterback, but even a guy that was drafted first overall, that was at a franchise that, listen, the Cleveland Browns is not your ideal franchise, okay? But even with all of that, they still, when they saw those commercials and Baker wasn't playing well, they blamed the commercials on why Baker wasn't playing well, or they blamed it on something else. He has to understand, and his team has to understand, it's good to profit from your likeness, but you got to be careful because when you're not playing well, people tend to use that against you. And we're in a society now that you don't have to do much. You don't have to do much to get a commercial. You really don't. If they just feel that you have whatever that it is and they can profit from it, if they don't care if you're not playing well or not, you're going to get the commercial. And if they're racking up the dough because of that, or their attention is being paid to that product because of who's promoting it, that's all they care about.
Mark from Nashville is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mark, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Adam?
Go ahead.
Okay, how you doing? Hey, well, what's up, Credit Lee Dollar? You preaching? You still preaching, man? I hear you. What time? Hey, D Mays, what time is church service Sunday, man?
We got service every day from 11 to 2, Monday through Friday, and then we have service on Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30.
Oh, okay then. Okay, I'm going to remember that.
Oh,
But
man.
hey, D Mace, you're 100% right. Callahan doesn't really owe Will Levis anything. I think they're going to have to go back to the draft, maybe get a Cam Ward or do something because I don't see it working. You know, Levis did and, get in touch with Peyton Manning and did ask him about endorsements that time. There was a lot said about that right there. But D Mace and Adam, I want to ask you a quick question. Quarterbacks in college, they come out of college with less than 30 starts. The quarterbacks that get 30 starts are usually more successful in NFL. Levis didn't have 30 starts in college. Maybe that's a lot of what the struggle is with him. But he is really struggling mightily. Like D. May said yesterday, if you put Mason Rudolph in there, that's not going to do you a whole lot better. I think Callahan's going to have to go get the quarterback in the draft this year and figure things out from there. I think this year is a wash. Hey, is Willie around anywhere?
He is.
Willie is here.
I had to get my mic on.
Willie is here.
Okay, how you doing, Willie?
I'm doing all right.
Hey, Willie, I got some good news for you, man. You're gonna love me for this, Willie. Let's get our tickets and our bags packed, Willie, because we got an all New York Subway series coming up.
I like the sound of that. I'll take that.
Hey, Willie, it's over for the Dodgers.
Oh,
They
don't
have
say
any-
don't. Hey, listen, I'm gonna tell you.
don't
Don't
have
say that because
Willie.
you're gonna freak Willie out over here.
One at a time.
Yeah,
One at a time.
exactly.
Yeah, but hey, Willie, I'm gonna put it all out there on the line. Bring Jesse Orozco back. Bring Hojo back. Bring Keith Hernandez, Gary. Bring all those guys back. Put them behind the home plate and let them root for. That's what we're gonna be looking at. The Mets will win it in 6.
Oh my
They'll
God.
be celebrating in Flushing Meadows. The Mets are going to have a championship, Willie. I just
Willie
wanna
is
let you know.
breaking out
Let's
in
go.
hives.
Exactly.
Willie is breaking
go.
out in
Willie's about to
hives as we
hyperventilate right
speak.
now.
Woo.
My
It'll
blood
be all
pressure.
right. Hey, Willie, we're gonna guarantee that, Willie.
Oh,
Not the
Willie.
G word.
Oh, Willie about to faint
I'm
now.
sweating. I'm sweating.
Mark, thank you for the call, my
Good job,
friend.
Mark. LGM.
All right, see you,
Oh,
Adam.
man.
See y'all later, man.
We're going to head to break here. Willie needs to breathe into a
I need
paper
to
bag.
regroup. I need to regroup.
Willie needs to regroup. 615-737-1025. While Willie catches his breath, we'll come back. We'll discuss the Predators. They play tonight at home against the Seattle Kraken. That's why we're here at Bridgestone Arena. Some interesting line combinations we are expecting to see this evening, and we'll break that down. Next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
D Mason here, one part of DVD. And if you're injured in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve, and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and will help you get it all repaired or better yet replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support events or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW TIGERS or visit their website at lawtigers.com. That's Law Tigers. It's powered by Freeman Infusion, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen live inside Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators will face the Seattle Kraken tonight at 7. All coverage here, of course, on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So the Predators have come up empty-handed in their first 2 games of the season, a 4-3 loss to the Dallas Stars on Thursday, a 3-0 loss to the Detroit Red Wings on Saturday. The Predators are trying to avoid their first 0-3, 0-3-0, I should be specific. Their first 0-3-0 start to a season since 2006. That team, though, did win 51 games, but it did start 0-3 with 3 regulation losses.
Can you say that again? How many wins did they end up with?
51.
51. And that was what year?
2006.
2006.
Yes.
So that team, I think, I can't remember what happened right after they lost the first 3, but they started not losing at all for the next month. They ended up with, that's one of the most powerful teams they've ever had. Long story short.
They started 0-3, 0-3-0. Then they were 9-3-1. So they went 9-0-1 after starting 0-3-0.
I thought I remembered that right. That was Paul Correa. Eventually, Peter Forsberg later that season. Jason Arnott, J.P. Dumont added to Steve Sullivan, Scott Hartnell, etc. A very young Shea Weber, a young Ryan Suter, Kimmo Timonen in his prime. So I do think just like in the NFL, people really hone in on how you do in your first 2 or 3 games, but you have a lot of hockey left. I mean, you have a lot of hockey left on January 1st, but we're just scratching the surface on what's going on here. That being said, it's just not a good feeling when you have a 0 in your win column.
Correct.
Right?
So the Predators are going to try to get that first win in the win column tonight against the Seattle Kraken. And in the news of the day, as it pertains to the Predators, we saw at practice yesterday, and the expectation is that this is going to be the second line this evening. Steven Stamkos is going to shift to center. I did not expect to see that happen in game number 3. I thought that was more of a break glass in case of emergency type situation. But Steven Stamkos will start at second line center with Jonathan Marchessault on his right and Cole Smith on his left. The second line has not clicked yet this season. Stamkos and Marchessault started with Tommy Novak. Last game, it was Colton Sissons. And now this game, Steven Stamkos sliding over to center between Cole Smith and Jonathan Marchessault as Andrew Brunette tries to get his offense going. I saw the reaction to Max Herz's tweet because that's how I saw these line combinations yesterday. Max Herz of the Predators Radio Network. And boy, oh boy, were there some spicy replies to Cole Smith playing on the line with Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. Willie, what's behind this decision from Andrew Brunette, and what should we expect from this new look second line tonight against Seattle?
There's a couple of layers to this that I think in general, if you think that this is what Andrew Brunette has planned for the last 80 games of the season, I think you're you would be overreacting to that. I think it is for one purpose. I shouldn't say one purpose. It's just to try to get a spark going. I remember a game, and it might have been during that season that you just referred to when the Predators were 0-3 and ended up competing for the President's Trophy. The only team that I think passed them up was the Red Wings, who happened to be in their same division. And so that dropped the Predators to the 4th seed, and they lost in the first round. But that was a very powerful Predators team that got injury riddled at the end of the year.
The Predators finished in 3rd place in the league that season behind the Sabres and Red Wings, who both had 113 points. The Predators and Ducks had 110.
So you're just looking for a way to spark and get things in sync. If you take a look at the numbers, they are getting a huge amount of possession, a huge amount of shots. They just are a little bit off with the timing. I think what Cole Smith does is he is an ingredient where he knows exactly. He's one of the most coachable players that the Predators have. And I hope that over time, as the fans have watched Cole Smith play more, that they can appreciate more of what he brings to the table. He is not being put on the second line because they think he's all of a sudden going to score 20, 25 goals. That is not why he's on that line. But what he does is he is going to play the system to a T. He is going to play fast. He is one of the faster skaters on the team. He's going to be skating with the intensity. And what they're hoping that does is bring a little extra gear to Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos and almost show them the way of here's how the system is played. Here's the speed we're going to get to. And I would not be surprised at all is if at some point it's not clicking, that they'll try something else. This, I think, will be the fourth person they've tried as the third man on that line. I don't worry so much about whether Stamkos is playing center or not. So Stamkos, if you look, he's already taken a bunch of faceoffs. So he's quasi-centering anyway, and he's always going to take a lot of faceoffs. It's just trying to figure out, with experimentation, who's the right guy to be the third. I think Tommy Novak will end up back on that line at some point until they settle in on the right guy. Juuso Parssinen gets in there tonight. I could see Juuso Parssinen, if he plays well and builds a little bit in his game, he gets a crack at some point on that line. It's just trying to get the group up to speed, get the timing up, and continue to get the new guys acclimated to the speed and the details of the system. And the speed and the details, Cole Smith might be the best guy on the team with that.
So what you're saying is they need a better lead dog in a sense. We need a guy that can go out there because you're flanked by two new additions. So we need that lead guy, whether it's Sissons or Novak, or whoever, to sort of show them the way. Because if that lead guy is going slow, then automatically those two guys are going to go at the speed of him. And it's not, I get it, it's not all about speed. But what I'm saying is this: they're able to play their game because that guy in the middle is setting them up faster. He's getting to where he needs to quicker. And now they adjust to that. But if things are not flowing the way it needs to, then they're only going to play like that one guy is playing in a sense. So you're trying to create a line where you can get the most out of your two additions that you brought in.
If you look back last year, when they got humming and went 16-0-2, and even to a degree before that, remember last year's team started 5-10, and they had some games that looked like the first two games where they played pretty well, and you're like, okay, but they lost, so they didn't even get to overtime, and you're like, wait a minute, there's something better here. Just have to tweak some things and get on the same page. But it took a while for the group to get to the attention to detail and the speed level that an Andrew Brunette team and system plays. When they get going, they are one of the teams that plays the fastest and the highest tempo. And that is not with individual skaters that are the fastest that would run like 4.1 and a 40, 4.5, 40, things like that. It's how they play connected together. It's a very unique system. And I think for new guys especially, there is an adjustment, especially for a guy like Steven Stamkos, who's been playing in the same system for 16 years.
Yeah.
Right? There is going to be some time that he needs to adjust. So I think that's the hope. And there is going to be some trial and error, I think, early on. You hope that you get some wins while everybody's adjusting. You have to get some.
Yeah.
Right? But I do think keep an eye on the work in progress. I don't think this is a full-time thing. I think this is a temporary thing. I think we can look back plenty of times and see where a coach tries something just to try to get a spark, throw a little shockwave through some lines and try to spark some guys. Because he thinks he has talked about one of the terms that Andrew Brunette says, Cole Smith can spark a line just with his energy and work ethic. And sometimes that's what you need to get yourself going a little bit.
To Willie's point about maybe a lack of cohesion so far, maybe things being a tick off. As Willie said, if you look at total shot attempts, if you look at time of possession in the offensive zone, the Predators are doing a good job in those metrics.
Top five.
The issue,
top five in the league.
The issue so far is that they haven't been able to generate the highest percentage looks. Willie and I talked about these numbers the other day. Grade A scoring chances in all situations through 2 games. The Predators have 11. Their opponents have a combined 23. It was 11-6 in favor of Dallas on Saturday, or on Thursday. It was 12-5 in favor of Detroit on Saturday. So combined, the Stars and the Red Wings have generated 23 grade A scoring chances against the Predators. The Predators have generated 11. So it's good that the Predators are getting in the offensive zone and are able to sustain possession time in the offensive zone. The next step is then generating those grade A looks where players like Steven Stamkos can take advantage, and the pucks that weren't going in the net on Saturday will start going in the net.
Well said. And I think if you add the B and the C chances, which are still scoring chances, and you hope that the Predators now have more skilled guys that can score on great. You could give me 20 grade C chances in a game, and I'm not going to score because I have no skill. But if you give Jonathan Marchessault, Philip Forsberg, and Steven Stamkos grade C chances, they're going to get their share of goals. So the overall scoring chances are a pretty solid advantage for the Predators. But as you mentioned, there's 2 things happening here. They're not getting as many grade A as they would like to, and I think as they get more in sync. The other thing that has happened, Andrew Brunette has said the summer hockey, which means we're not buttoned up, we're playing loose, we're trying a little too much. It has caught them in some odd man rushes going back the other way. You could really see it in the Detroit game. But that's where a lot of the grade A scoring chances the other team is getting as counterpunching. When there is a breakdown, it's resulting in a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2, and that's resulting in some good quality looks. And in particular, Dallas cashed in on those looks.
Yes.
Not so much Detroit. Detroit, they had a couple of goals where it was just, I wouldn't say fluky. It was good, hardworking, greasy goals, a tip, deflection. I thought UC Saros played a great game on Saturday. But especially the example I would look at is the Dallas game. There's a couple breakdowns where people not on the same page, attention to details not there.
Think of the 2 goals they scored in 19 seconds.
Yeah.
2 goals in 19 seconds. Coverage wasn't good, and that turns into a grade A, and on certain nights that can burn you.
So the Predators will try to get back on the winning track tonight against the Seattle Kraken. Game starts at 7. All coverage here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Coming up next, we have a trade to propose, or more specifically, somebody else on this station has a trade to propose. I want to propose the proposition to Willie and Derek and to all of you. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the Predators, Preds fans, don't miss tomorrow night's Smashville live show at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 p.m. See your favorite Predators players up close and personal. Get autographs and pictures. Player guests tomorrow will be Philip Tomasino and Juuso Parssinen. That's tomorrow night at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs and on your home of the Nashville Predators, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Okay, let's tell you about Lee Company. 615-567-1000. We're here in Smashville, and Lee Company is a big sponsor of Nashville Predators hockey and our coverage here on 102.5 The Game, which starts tonight at 6 o'clock with Max Hurst. And, of course, Pete Weber and Jay Moore will have the call for you. Also, Lee Company has you covered on your house. If you're a homeowner, you need to be on top of things when it comes to your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. And you want to have a good feeling that those things are working properly. They have a year-round program for you at Lee Company where they will check annually your heating, cooling systems, your plumbing system to make sure that things aren't building up. Because eventually you live in a house long enough, you're going to need some repairs, and Lee Company will help you with those repairs as well. They are first class. We have used them a lot in our house over a long period of time, going back now 8 to 10 years. Great relationship. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. That's 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. It's Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
Nashville's best deal this week is Staley Chicago Italian Dining right here in Nashville. Winner of numerous Best of awards, this is truly one of the best kept secrets in Nashville. Staley Chicago Italian Dining brings amazing Italian food to the South, including original Italian beef sandwiches, Vienna Chicago-style hot dogs, and the best gyros south of Chicago. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $20 gift card while supplies last. Somebody complimented me yesterday on my pronunciation of gyros.
Euros.
Gyros.
Right. They're not gyros, people.
They're not gyros. Don't say
Gyros.
gyros.
No, don't say gyros. They're gyros. So I was listening to Robbie and Rexroad this morning, and the one and only Joe Rexroad proposed a trade between the Tennessee Titans and his beloved Detroit Lions. As we know, the Lions appear to be a juggernaut, but they just suffered a significant loss. Aiden Hutchinson, fractured tibia and fibula, done for the year. So Joe proposed a trade. There were multiple layers of this trade. For example, there was a part of this trade that included swapping the backup quarterback. So the Titans would give up Mason Rudolph and they would get Hendon Hooker in exchange. We're going to avoid that
We're
part.
not playing
GB Joe.
fantasy. We're not playing fantasy football.
We're going to
okay?
avoid that part. But I did find this interesting. Joe proposed a trade because the Lions need someone to replace Aiden Hutchinson in the pass rush. So Joe wondered aloud if he were in charge of the Titans, would you consider trading Harold Landry to the Detroit Lions to replace Aiden Hutchinson? And you could probably get a decent return in that. What do you think about that idea, guys?
Listen, we've already said that the Titans have holes to fill already, and they tried their best at filling some of those holes last year. And they some of them haven't been filled, even with bringing in new guys. You don't get better by shipping away good players that are still playing at a high level, good players that are the best options on your team. Harold Landry is the best option on the Tennessee Titans defense in regards to getting to the quarterback. If that is indeed the case, why would I then send away my best option at getting to the quarterback to a team, because Detroit's not going to give you a first round pick, regardless of what you say. Detroit is not giving you a first round pick for Harold Landry. And you're not getting better by getting rid of Harold Landry. So to me, that's one of those improbable trades. I see Detroit going to get Hassan Reddick before they inquire or before the Titans reach out and say, hey, we got Harold Landry, available for a trade. Give us a first round draft pick. The Lions are going to say, well, you know what? Thank you, but no thank you. Let me hang this phone up, because Philadelphia won't be asking for a first round draft pick. At least I don't think they will, for Hassan Reddick. And I can get Hassan Reddick for much cheaper. So that is a fantasy football sort of deal. And I understand why, because Joe's looking at it. Well, we're trying to build up draft picks. We're trying to get picks for the next upcoming draft. But again, Harold Landry is back into form. He's that guy. He's back being that guy now. Why would you get rid of a guy that's got right back on top, right where he left off before he got injured? Why then would you ship that guy off? To me, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They're trying to get better, not worse. And if you trade Harold Landry away, you're going to lose your team. I'm just going to tell you that. You give Harold Landry away, one of the few guys that is playing at a high level. Give him away if you want to. You're going to lose your locker room. Other guys going to be pissed. Like, you gave it. This guy is playing his tail off. He don't complain about anything. He just go about doing his job. And that's the guy you look to get rid of? Man, how fast can I get away from this organization?
Well, okay. So comes back to the R word. Are you rebuilding? They have not come to grips with it the way I think that they should have from the day. And it even goes back before the beginning of last season. They knew at the end of the 23 season, going into the 2023 season, okay? When the whole summer of the Kevin Byard thing, they knew when they decided to pay Kevin Byard, pay Derrick Henry, pay Ryan Tannehill, the remainder of their contracts, basically, the bulk of the remainder of their contracts, and not kick the can down the road, restructure, pay dead money, do that trick. They decided they paid the credit card bill, and yet they still wanted to contend. And that, to me, was not the worst thing. It was trying to thread the needle a little bit, but they knew at the beginning of last season that this year was going to be a new era. They knew it was going to be the last year of Derrick Henry. They knew it was going to be the last year of Ryan Tannehill, and they knew it was going to be the last year of Kevin Byard. And they traded Kevin Byard before the season ended. I don't understand why they couldn't just say this season, the 2024 season, is a rebuilding season. So now, doing what they did, spending a lot of money in free agency, and now figuring out some of the picture, if not the complete picture, of Will Levis, if they are now in the mode of rebuilding, then you absolutely should consider what you can get for any of the veterans. The only way you can get better is to draft and draft well. That is the reason they're in this position to begin with, is because of the faulty drafting of 3 drafts, which we have been saying ad nauseum for a long, long time. That is why they are so scarce of top-end talent, difference-making talent, is because they whiffed on a bunch of first-round picks and 3 entire drafts when you get down to it. So here's what I'm saying in conclusion. You've got to take a look and see what you could get for Harold Landry. At 28, is he a guy? Now, you're right. He has rebounded. He is a very, very good player. Is he a guy that is making a huge difference and will make a huge difference from now until the time you go into the stadium? Or are you better off taking what you can get? I agree with you. He's not going to get a first-round pick. I'd have to talk to Joe. I didn't hear what he said about how he thinks they're going to get a first-round pick. I don't see it with Landry. But pass rushers are the type of guys that get dealt. I think Washington dealt a
Chase
couple of them.
Young and Montez Sweat.
Yeah, right. So
last year.
And you look through the years, Khalil Mack. There are edge rushers that get dealt, and you get a pretty good return on that. So to me, at 1 and 4, I have to look at that and say, what could I get for Harold Landry?
Well, here's why
I got to risk losing the locker room. I'm not. My team's not good enough. They're not good enough anytime soon.
No. See, that's what you can't. It's easy to say I can risk losing locker room, but once you lose a locker room, you can't get it back. You're done. You might as well hand in your
It's a tough dilemma.
You might as well hand in your papers to Amy Adams Strunk.
I agree.
And say, hey, listen, I'm
It's
done
hard.
because I've lost my locker room and I can't get it back.
You keep the locker room and you go 5 and 12. Where are you?
It's not about whether this guy or that guy. Listen, they couldn't. And I want to be clear with this. The Tennessee Titans couldn't, and I understand what you're saying, Willie, in regards to a rebuild. But the Tennessee Titans couldn't come out of last season and tell everybody in the football world, we are rebuilding. You know why? They ain't getting a L'Jarius Sneed. They're not getting a Cushenberry. They're not getting a Calvin Ridley. They may get Tyler Boyd. But those 3 guys right there, they're not getting. Why? Because those 3 guys don't want to sit around and wait for a rebuild.
That's the
D-Hop would have been asking, like, man, can y'all trade me? Because I'm not sitting here because you never know how long that rebuild is going to take.
Yeah. And it's a good point by you, and I'll give you a good reference point, and this will hit home for you.
Okay.
When Floyd Reese got into the salary cap crunch of 2004, or the end of the 2004 season, where it just couldn't be kept together any longer. Steve McNair got hurt. The 2004 season just kind of spiraled out of control. It just and the credit card bill got so high. Floyd Reese just blew it up, and he cut you. He cut Kevin Carter, Samari Rolle. All of that happened. Steve McNair was going to be moving on pretty soon. Floyd Reese said, this is a rebuild. We have no choice. The credit card bill is too high. I've got no choice. I've got to rebuild. And Floyd Reese remained the general manager for the next couple years while they did have to rebuild. But for the very reason you just said, Jeff Fisher refused to use the word rebuild. And the reason is, he says, I can't go into a locker room to start a season saying, guys, it doesn't matter whether we win or lose. This is a rebuild. So I get that part. But if you're Rand Carthon and you're Brian Callahan, you have got to go into survival mode here. You're not good enough. And you have to sell Amy Adams Strunk on this plan, because I think you've done enough to – I just think we're grasping at straws if you think they're going to go on a huge run and be super competitive, and you end up picking up the 17th pick in the draft.
When Derek was mentioning Harold Landry and everything that Harold Landry means to the Titans and the locker room, I'll tell you the first person that popped into my head, and it wasn't a football player, it was a hockey player. Matthias Ekholm was the first person that popped into my head. Matthias Ekholm was a homegrown talent for the Nashville Predators and a hugely important part of this team's success for years. Never got the credit he deserved, I think, for how important he was to this team. And Matthias Ekholm will indeed be here on Thursday with the Edmonton Oilers, and he played a gigantic role in that team turning its season around last year and making it to within 1 win of the Stanley Cup. But when the Predators traded Matthias Ekholm, think of the windfall they received. Now, it's apples and oranges to compare football trades to hockey trades. But that was a trade the Predators needed to make, because they knew at that point what was going on in the dressing room, that mix wasn't working anymore. And tough decisions had to be made. He wasn't the only one traded. Nino Niederreiter was traded at that point. Mikhail Granlund was traded at that point. Tanner Jeannot was traded at that point. But Matthias Ekholm, that was a big deal when Matthias Ekholm was traded. He developed here. He was drafted by the team. But you hope that what the Predators acquired in that deal, which included a first-round pick, that helps this team moving forward. So I'm sure I wasn't around at that time. I imagine the Predators players in that dressing room were crestfallen to see Matthias Ekholm go out the door.
That one hurt. And Tanner Jeannot, I remember, was in tears. Like he didn't want to leave. Like that was an emotional. Right. Nino Niederreiter, Roman Josi. Here's this will resonate with you, D. Mace. Roman Josi and Nino Niederreiter, both from Switzerland. Roman Josi had called Nino Niederreiter in the summer and given him the recruiting pitch. Hey, I think we got a pretty good team. If we get you, we're going to be even better. Coaxed him into signing, only to see him traded.
Didn't even make it through his first season.
And Roman Josi, the captain of the team, he was crushed, because that was the first trade of those four.
Yes.
That signaled we are rebuilt, we are retooling, we are selling at the deadline, which is absolutely what they had to do at the time. And David Poile deserves credit for coming to that conclusion. But that didn't make it very easy. And I was in Arizona when they did it. They had to play with a man short. They were like, this is one of my best friends. They just traded. That was tough. And then they traded Tanner Jeannot not long after that. So there is a morale price to pay for the good of the big picture.
Yes.
But that's what you have to make these decisions sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to make the decisions, but you also got to make a decision to, hey, listen, we can't make it seem to our veteran players, guys that have stood in the fire with us, we can't make it seem to them that they're disposable. And trading away Harold Landry, you tell everybody else you're disposable. I don't care. You're disposable. I don't care if you are playing at the top of your game. You're disposable.
Well, why would anybody trade a veteran anywhere then for that reason? I mean, you have to do it sometimes.
No, sometimes you have to do it. But this situation, you don't have to do it. You do not.
So you think Landry is going to be a part of the next really good Titans team?
I think Harold Landry can be a part of what they envision moving forward. He's young enough. He's still playing great football. He's one of the cornerstones. Remember the movie The Last of the Mohicans? He is the last of the Mohicans.
Okay.
He truly is, from the whole Vrabel era and everything. He is that last guy that is still playing well. So I know you may need picks. I know all, but you don't sacrifice the best player on your defense. He is the best player on your defense. Not Jeffrey Simmons, not T'Vondre Sweat, not L'Jarius Sneed. Those are good players, but he's the best player on your team. That linebacking crew is the best unit on your team right now.
615-737-1025. What do you think about Joe Rexroth's trade proposal, Harold Landry to the Detroit Lions to replace the injured Aiden Hutchinson? We'll continue this conversation on the other side. We want to hear from you. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
Hey, this is D. Mason here, and I've talked to you every day about my good friends, Dr. Lodge, over at Cool Springs MD and his staff. If you have set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to come up short or disappointed. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that's why they are offering a different approach to weight loss. Not like everybody else. This is different. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and no one else. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mays, Vengan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3, the game live from Barrel House inside Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators will host the Seattle Kraken tonight at 7 o'clock. Talking Joe Rexroad's trade proposal from this morning on Robbie and Rexroad. Harold Landry to the Lions to replace the injured Aiden Hutchinson. Austin is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He wants to chime in on this. Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, guys, I have watched the Titans for just years and years. And in this conversation about Harold Landry as this guy who's so important in a game wrecker, I just feel, number one, he has an injury history. Number two, I'm normally watching the game. Entire course of the game goes on, and, oh, Harold Landry got a sack. I think to loop him in with the same categories as the Nick Bosa's, the Aiden Hutchinsons, the Max Crosby's is kind of crazy. If somebody's going to pay you for him, somebody's going to take him in a rebuild year, I'm good. Send him.
Okay, but I've never compared him to those three guys because he's not in a class of those three guys. He has 4 sacks in 6 games right now. You damn well need Harold Landry if you're talking about getting to the quarterback, and then you leave Denard Wilson out on the limb. who is this next pass rusher? You have nobody behind Harold Landry that you can put in and generate sacks. He's the only guy that is generating sacks on your team. I understand y'all wanting to get rid of him. Y'all wanting to, get picks and all that other stuff. Get rid of him if you want to. That defense, he's one of few bright spots on this team. He's one of few bright spots on that defensive unit. And y'all are saying, well, just go ahead and trade him away because you're not getting a first-round draft pick for him, and you may not even get a second-round draft pick because people know right now you're really trying to unload to build up picks. So I'm not giving you a first or a second when I know you're trying to unload him for whatever reason. Maybe this is you finally realize that this is a rebuild. And now you're having a fire sale for any and everybody. Well, if you're having a fire sale, you think I'm gonna go up to the cash register and give you top dollar for that particular item? No, I'm not. If you want a first, you're gonna get a third. You better take it or leave it. And I'm walking out the door. Again, you don't get better by subtracting good players. And he's a damn good player. Again, never said he was Crosby. Never said he was
Thank you for
Bosa.
the call, Austin, by
Thank
the
you,
way.
Austin. Never said he was Bosa or anything else. But you know what? He's that for this team. That's what he is. And he's proven. This guy, you said he had an injury history. The injury that I remember, the blown out knee, he came back the next year. He started off slow, picked up steam in the second half of the season, and he picked up where he left off this season. This guy is a player. Go ahead and get rid of him if you want to. And y'all gonna be the same people that screaming, y'all got rid of another leader. He's one of your leaders on the team that lacks leadership, at least veteran leadership. And you want to just get rid of him because your team's not doing well? Find another way to get better.
Well, what is the other way? Draft well.
They
need more draft picks. Because spending the free agent money on marginal players, which is, I think, what they have gotten. They got to mix and match. Some are better than others, but it doesn't take you to the heights that it can take you. Say in baseball, you could probably spend your way with no salary cap if you want to and improve quite a bit. There's risk involved with injuries and all that, but in football, it's hard to spend your way in free agency because the guys that hit free agency are a little older.
Yeah.
They have been let go for a reason from the team that they were on for their probably better years, and you have to overpay for those guys. So it is a catch-22. I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do at all because I agree with everything you're saying about Landry, but I think you have to look at your assets and ask yourself, how do I get more draft capital and what's realistic about what this guy is going to bring to the table for the next couple of Titans teams, which I think are going to be a work in progress.
Harold Landry is what, 28 years old?
He's 28. He'll be 29 to start next year because this year, I think you have to think beyond what he's giving this team.
This guy has at least, barring injury, this guy, and that's with any player, barring injury, but he has really a good 3 to 4 more good years. And then after that, he'll start to plateau a little bit, and then maybe he can be your situational guy. But again, I don't see how, because this is not a one-year fix, okay? And then you got other holes that you got to fill. Tell me how you're going to fill that defensive, that rush linebacker position. How you going to fill that when you got to fill the quarterback position, you got to fill the right tackle position, you got to get you another corner, you got to get you another safety, got to get you another offensive lineman, a guard possibly. And then you're going to add trying to get a rush in or a slash linebacker to get you sacks. These guys they come at a premium, these rush ins. And if you just give them away, okay, then how do you feel?
So you're giving a lot of Vrabel. You're giving a lot of Vrabel. You don't rebuild in the NFL.
Listen,
this is the argument for that you're making. I understand that, but I still think.
But how do you replace Harold Landry?
That's what I need. I think that's where the key assessment is Landry going to be a part of your next really good team? If the answer is yes, then I think you probably keep.
Brad is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a comment on our discussion. Brad, go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
Yeah, we kind of went through this with A.J. Brown, right? We get rid of Harold Landry for a draft pick. At this point, I don't see the Titans winning one or two more games. Look at their schedule. But to unload a guy like that when he probably could be there next year. You know, you're going to try to draft a guy to replace him. It's just hard to come by. The other thing, too, keep in mind, you know, with Will Levis, those guys like Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins are out there every year. And, you know, it may not be a draft choice. It might be signing a veteran, not Russell Wilson, but someone better than that. But I feel like, you know, this is a rebuilding year, clearly. But we can't unload people like that if we feel like they're part of a good part of the equation. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance of trying to make sure that you are prepared for the future, but also, as you've been saying, Derek, not kneecapping yourself in the present. And I think Willie's question is the key question. By the time this team is competitive again, and your definition of competitive can vary. I know Willie and I have gone back and forth on this as it relates to the Predators. When I think of competitive, I think of a team that has a legitimate chance of winning a championship. So, you know, do you believe that Harold Landry in his late 20s, by the time the Titans are good, and is it as simple as finding a competent quarterback? You know, if Sam Darnold, I think Sam Darnold, for example, is on a 1-year deal with the Vikings. If J.J. McCarthy comes back healthy and the Vikings say, hey, Sam, thanks for holding us down, we got to go with J.J. McCarthy. You sign Sam Darnold, and he has the type of season he's having now. Well, maybe not because he doesn't have Justin Jefferson. But my point is, if you get a competent quarterback in here, do you think that you will be competitive enough by the time while Harold Landry is still in his prime? That's the question.
Before you answer that, Derek, also factor in that Harold Landry at this stage of his contract is one of the most expensive players on the team. His cap hit right now this year is 23.8, and next year it goes up over 24 million. There is an out, according to Spot Rack, that you could pay your way out of it and pay 13 million of the deal to make it better. But still, you're committed. It's a lot of money invested in Landry as well. And I think the caller who called in and said, okay, he's a good player, but is he giving you that? I think that's a fair question. Is he worth 24 million against the cap? I don't know.
He's giving.
Is that a good value for where this team is?
I mean, he's giving you a half a sack a game. That's basically what he's giving you. He's playing at a level that we are used to Harold Landry playing in. He's on pace for over 10 sacks once again in his career. Yes, you can trade him away, and yes, you can potentially get, you know, draft picks. I don't know how high that draft pick would be, but yes, you can get some draft picks. But then how do you replace that? Because you're going to have to pay regardless. And then you're asking other teams to take on the contract. If Willie, if you're thinking, okay, he's 23 now, it's going to be 24 next year, meaning millions of dollars they got to pay him. How many teams are going to be willing to take on that?
I think what you would be looking for to get the max value in a trade or value in a trade would be something like Joe pointed out, where a team in a window, the Lions, who have a lot of young talent and are probably seeing an opportunity like, hey, we might be good enough to win this thing. They almost did it last year. And they're looking to replace a key guy, and they're like, look, let's go for it. Let's overpay to bring in a guy who is a competent replacement for one of their best players. I think it would be a team like that, a team that's going for it right now. Those are the types of teams that will overpay for Harold Landry and worry about all the other stuff later because they're going for it.
Yeah.
That's why the Titans traded for Julio Jones, which turned out to be a terrible trade in retrospect.
Yeah.
But I see why they did it. They thought they could win it. And they had lost Corey Davis, and they're like, well, we can bring in Julio Jones. Let's try it. We'll just worry about this year. And it backfired. But it was a shot. That's what was mysterious about the A.J. Brown trade. They were in the window, but that was almost like a retooling. That was trying to thread the needle of John Robinson maybe overthinking it, saying, oh, I'll take the first-round pick, and that receiver I'll take it. He'll give me what A.J. Brown can give me, and that seems completely crazy now.
What is going to help this team like it has helped many teams around throughout the history of the NFL? And I'm not bringing this up to blame anybody. Just draft better. You draft better.
Yes.
Supplement it with your free agents, and then I'm more than likely you're gonna build a good team. You don't build a good team by getting rid of one of your best players and then having to replace him with we don't know who.
But you need picks to draft better, and they traded their third-round pick.
Okay, I'm
for
saying
for L'Jarius Sneed.
You're right.
So they're low on picks.
I'm
They
gonna say
need
this
more picks.
because this is the question that Jared throws out every time when this question comes up, and you know, to a point, it's like, okay, I agree with them, but I still want to give this staff the benefit of the doubt as far as the GM and everybody else. Do you trust this staff to pick the right people in the draft?
Okay, but
the
owner's not going to change.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Amy Adams is going to own the team. I heard Jared's whole
but
tirade. He wants to throw everybody away and bring a whole new set of people in there that have a whole new set of problems.
I'm not saying
you cannot have that mentality.
Willie, I'm not saying get rid of Rand Carthon, get rid of Brian Callahan, get rid of Brinker. I am not saying any of that. But for all the Tennessee Titans fans that are like, yeah, get rid of Harold Landry, let's get some draft picks. The question I am posing to you, I don't agree with it, but the question I am posing to you, do you trust this unit to draft the right guys? If you do, then okay. Get rid of them.
What choice do you have?
You have two choices: to keep them or to not keep them. Those are the two choices that you have, and figure out a way to accumulate some draft picks another way.
But here, that's a separate thing. If you want other people to make those draft picks, you can do that. Those draft picks.
But again, do you?
If you want different people evaluating, okay, that's fine. I wouldn't do that this early in the whole thing. But
this come from a premise of they're not changing anybody at the top. Nobody. And I don't want to.
The reason they're in the hole is the previous regime messed up three drafts in a row.
But this fan base is blaming Rand Carthon for some of the stuff that's going on too. So if you're blaming Rand Carthon and then you're saying get rid of Harold Landry, give me some picks, do you trust him to pick the right guy? I'm not saying I don't.
He inherited a lot of this. He inherited the three bad drafts.
I agree.
Had nothing to do with that.
I agree with you on everything you're saying, Willie, and I don't blame Rand Carthon for this. But I hear show after show on this station where fans call in and they don't trust Rand Carthon, Brinkert, or anybody else to draft anybody. But yet and still, they're calling on this show saying, get rid of Harold Landry, get as much as you can. They are not getting rid of Rand Carthon. They're not getting rid of Brinkert. Nobody. So when y'all are saying that, do y'all trust this unit? Do y'all trust them to draft the right guys?
615-737-1025. To your corners, gentlemen.
Yes.
615, ding, ding, ding. 615-737-1025. We'll continue this conversation on the other side. I also want to bring in another figurehead in the Titans decision-making group here, Brian Callahan. I feel like we asked this question to Tim Hasselbeck, Derek. He's walking a tightrope on a number of things, and I want to break that down. Next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donk, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5-106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Vingen and Donick, 1025, 1063. The game live at Bridgestone Arena where the Predators take on the Seattle Kraken. We are broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen. By the way, I should say, since I mentioned the Predators game, it's at 7 o'clock. Predators Kraken at 7 o'clock. All coverage here starting at 6 on 1025, 1063 the game. So we just touched a little bit on the Titans' decision maker.
15 coaches for the Titans in the last 4 years.
Well, I said something to you as we were leaving, because when we were switching shows, Ian comes in to spell David, who produces our show. And I always like to get a vibe from Ian, like, what's Jared going to talk about today? And he was mentioning, asking the question about Brian Callahan. I said, I'm going to put the over-under at 20 minutes the first time I hear a Jim Tom Sula reference. It took until about 3:15 because he waited until the second hour, because Jim Tom Sula was a coach of the 49ers for one season. So I did hit on the reference. It just came later in the show than I anticipated. But my point is, we're not having a conversation right now about Brian Callahan and whether or not he should be fearful for his job. I don't think that's reasonable right now. But when we were talking to Tim Hasselbeck earlier, Derek, it's really it feels like it's a no-win situation in some respects for Brian Callahan. He has to walk a delicate, it's a tightrope. He wants to make sure that he's keeping his locker room invested, but also meeting the requirements of his owners and his bosses. And it feels like he can't necessarily do one. He can't do both at the same time, it feels like. If the ownership wants Will Levis to be the starting quarterback and that's what he's going to do, what do you always say? He could lose the locker room.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. If they go to Mason Rudolph, perhaps the owner is upset that they're putting in a veteran quarterback instead of trying to see if Will Levis is indeed a franchise quarterback. It just feels like it's a really tough spot for Brian Callahan as a first-year head coach. My question is, at what point do you feel like Brian Callahan has to enter self-preservation mode? Although his job is probably not on the line right now, he does have to look out for himself in some respects. And you two were educating me on the dynamic between Floyd Reese and Jeff Fisher, because I wasn't here for that, and how their relationship worked. But I just wonder about Brian Callahan, and at some point he's got to look out for himself too.
Yeah, he does. But I mean, and I've said this before, Brian Callahan this year is playing with house money. He has nothing to lose. One, he didn't draft this guy. He just agreed that, hey, listen, I see some things in him, and based upon my history with working with quarterbacks, I think I can work with him. But this is the guy that y'all drafted. This is the guy that y'all scouted. I didn't have to scout him. I had my quarterback. We had our quarterback in Cincinnati, and we had a backup that was good in Jake Browning. So we didn't have to scout Will Levis. This is y'all guy. I'm playing with house money right now. I believe I can come in here and help, but I'm not saying I'm some miracle worker. Miracle Whip, miracle worker, Mayo, however you want to put it.
Oh, don't go there. Let's not mention Mayo.
Exactly.
Don't go there.
But to me, this is not Callahan. This is the owner. This is the GM. When do they decide? When do they give Brian Callahan the okay to move on from the quarterback? Until that happens, Brian Callahan will continue to play Will Levis, because listen, they're out of the playoffs right now. Everybody knows it. You're starting to see cracks in the ship. Guys are frustrated, or whatnot. So there's cracks already there. So they're like, listen, until those above Brian Callahan say it's time, he's going to continue rolling with Will Levis, regardless if he's frustrated with Will Levis or not. Until they make that decision above him, he's going to keep riding with that quarterback.
We do have some breaking NFL news from Jordan Schultz. The Cleveland Browns are trading Amari Cooper to the Buffalo Bills.
Wow.
The Titans will face the Bills.
And we don't know the return.
We do not yet know. But according to Jordan Schultz, the Browns are trading Amari Cooper to the Buffalo Bills.
I do
Again.
say I did on more than one occasion last night watching the Monday night game,
Yeah, they need a
thinking
receiver.
they need a
Yeah,
receiver.
they need a receiver. If I am D Hop, after I've seen Adams get traded, now Amari Cooper, I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling my agent. Like, listen, do what you can and see if there's an opportunity for me to go somewhere else where they're going to truly compete, not just for a playoff spot, but to compete to have an opportunity to be in a Super Bowl. Find me that spot. You can do it quietly. You don't have to. I'm not going to say anything. You just do that. He needs to. And in regards to D-Hop.
Bob in Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a comment on Will Levis and Ran Carthon. Bob, go ahead.
Hey, I really do trust Ran Carthon with the decision making in the draft he's had the last 2 years, but the Will Levis pick 2 years ago, that was on Rand's watch, and unfortunately, I think the fans are seeing that pick, and that's overshadowing all the other great selections he's made.
And I will also say that if it had been the first round pick, Levis, then I think there's more heat on Ran Carthon.
Thank you, Bob.
But getting him in the second round, I don't think you should be penalized big for taking a swing at a guy that had a pretty good rating. A lot of people thought he was a worthy prospect, and he's not the first to not be what you hope he will be. And every year, there's probably more that are not the person that you hope he would be than they are. So I don't think there's anything wrong with their investment in Will Levis.
Well,
but I think the key is, how do the rest of those guys in that draft pan out? Skoronski could go different ways. I still think at his age, there's plenty of room for growth. And then this past draft, hopefully we'll progress into a good draft. But they need to string together 2 or 3 more coming up.
Well, here's the problem with that. And I get it. I get what you're saying. He wasn't a first round draft pick. It's a second round draft pick, so you could take sort of a little bit of a chance with a guy like that. They took a chance on T'Vondre Sweat, considering the weight issues, and T'Vondre Sweat he's playing good. I mean, he could play better. He understands that, but I'm not sitting here questioning whether they should have drafted T'Vondre Sweat or not. I think it was a good draft, but here's the problem: even though you had nothing to do with previous draft picks, it's still on the palette. What the Tennessee Titans have not done in regards to draft picks. So when you draft a quarterback second round, even though you had nothing to do with the prior picks years prior, people are just looking at the Titans' track record, not Ran Carthon's track record, not John Robinson's track record. They are looking at the Tennessee Titans track record. Why? Because the one person is still in place, and that's the owner. He's never going anywhere. And until it changes, they will always look back on, y'all don't know how to draft. Even though it wasn't Ran Carthon that drafted those guys that didn't work out. They will always come back to, y'all can't draft. Is that Rand's fault? No, it's not. But
that brings us back to how Adam started the hour, and that is the critical part of what Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon have to do as young people in jobs. They haven't been around the block a bunch of times at some different spots along the way as in the position they're in. First-time head coach, first-time general manager in his second year. But being able to communicate with Amy Adams Strunk is important, because Amy Adams Strunk is a wild card. She is the owner and is going to be the owner. And Jared can rip her to shreds up and down. She doesn't know what she's doing. This is a bad organization. The bottom line is, this is who they work for, is Amy Adams Strunk. I watched for years the master job that Floyd Reese and Jeff Fisher did at communicating with an aging Bud Adams, who was a unbelievable wild card. If you think Amy Adams Strunk is a wild card, Bud Adams was even more volatile, I think. So being able to sell to Bud Adams, who was aging and living in Houston, watching the NFL Network, different perspective. So he is getting everything from phone calls, I don't know who he's leaning on. This is what I've always been curious: is who does Amy Adams talk to when she's really talking about the team?
Well, we don't know. Is it Brinker?
No, I'm not talking about those people.
You're talking
I'm
about
talking
somebody
about
else
who she's
outside of
sounding
that.
board and say, should I? What do you guys think of Brinker? You know those people are out there. I don't know if it's family members. I don't know if it's drinking buddy. I mean, it could be any number of people for any number of owners through the years. But there's always a few people.
You know, when she has her girls' night,
I
she talks to the girls. I don't know.
Honestly,
Anybody.
It could be anybody. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, but you have to have your inner circle away from the people when you're trying to evaluate. Do I have the right people here? Because she's not a football person. And most owners are not.
Okay.
And sometimes the worst owners, like Jerry Jones, are the ones that think they know football.
Before you make that point, Derek, we do have an update on the Amari Cooper trade from Tom Pelissero. It appears that the Browns are getting a third-round pick as part of a pick swap in the deal. So a third-round pick as part of a pick swap, according to Tom Pelissero. So that would be a third-round pick for Cooper. And was it a third-round pick with the opportunity to become a second-round pick for Devontae Adams? So you would slot DeAndre Hopkins underneath there.
Yeah, it'd be. I think we've always said it. A fifth that could be a fourth or a flat-out fourth. I'm not sure if you're going to get a flat-out fourth, but I think you can get a fifth that can, translate into a fourth depending on what he does. Again, I'm not. When it comes to Amy, I'm not going to say Amy's not a football person. I'm not, because I don't know. I'm just saying me. I'm not talking about anybody else. I don't know if Amy is a football person or not. But what I will say is this: she's been around it long enough to know the ins and outs of being an owner of a billion-dollar franchise. I think she knows enough. And she cares about this franchise so much that I know she's been sitting in those meetings when they're evaluating people. So I'm not going to sit here and say she doesn't know what she's doing. I'm not running a Fortune 500 or a billion-dollar company. I'm not doing it.
I never said she doesn't know what she's doing.
No, but I'm saying for
but
those
she is
who
not
are
a football expert. That's not an indictment on her at all. But it's most owners. If I ran a painting company, I would not be sitting here telling me I know about painting.
No, but she doesn't have to be an expert.
I'm the owner, but I hire people that know about painting.
Exactly. She doesn't need to be an expert. She needs to know about her organization.
Yeah, you have a feel.
Yeah, she doesn't need to be an expert, but she needs to hire the right people.
Yes, and how do you do that? You talk to other people.
You talk to other
trust.
But I would.
Yeah.
But I would never.
I don't know
sit
who those
here,
people are for her.
And we're trying to figure that out. But I would never sit here and say Amy's not a football person. She's been in it long enough. I think she is. I believe she is a football person, but maybe she doesn't know as much as a Jerry Jones or a Robert Kraft or does the lady still own the Rams?
My definition of a football person is probably different than yours. My definition of a football person is somebody who has had a job working for a football team. That's different than an owner. See what I'm saying? That's the only distinction I'm making.
I see what you're saying.
I'm not saying she doesn't know anything about the game. She obviously is there every Sunday. She has her own opinion, just like everybody does who loves and has a passion for the team.
But I'm going to go back to this, okay? And this is why until they get their quarterback, and nothing's going to change for the Tennessee Titans. It's like buying a new house or buying a house, period. And there's this huge stain in the rug. And you try to clean that stain out, all right, before you move in. You try to clean that. And you get to a point where, okay, I think it's gone. But everybody else that walks into your house, they're going to see that stain. And they're not going to think about the people. Right. Yeah, they're not going to think about the last owners.
I'm conjuring up a lot of stains in my house over the years.
They're not going to look at that. Exactly. They're not going to look at the last owner. They're going to look at you and like, why didn't you, like, okay, I don't trust you. You got a nasty house. You don't know how to clean up that spot. They ain't going to say, well, who owned this house last? No, they're not going to say. They're going to put it all on you. That's what I mean with Ran Carthon, is that because of what has been done in the past, you haven't cleaned that up. And the only way you can clean that up, people, is if you get you a quarterback. That's the only way you clean up those stains of previous draft picks. And right now, the Titans have made the stain bigger and more noticeable. Why? Because they don't have their quarterback.
Bob and Franklin is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com with a comment. Bob, go ahead.
Hey guys, yeah, I completely believe in this regime, and I'm really kind of counting this draft class as really Rand's draft class. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much he really was involved last year with the class with Vrabel running it, but I am convinced, and I'm not calling for Mason Rudolph to be the starter. I'm not calling for that at all, but I'm convinced that if Rudolph was the starter, we would have won the first two games. I'm pretty sure we would have won any game because I think it would have been a different game plan because Rudolph will get in there and make a quicker decision. I think this all falls down on Levis. And the part that's scaring me now is that we're going to ride with Levis and see how he works out, but we're pulling the game plan back so bad, not doing anything with him, that I don't see what we're going to do for the future if we're limited in what he can go out there and do because they don't trust him, which I don't blame them for not trusting him. But I think Callahan is basically saying, I'm going to give him every last shot known possible. That way, when I do bench him or we just don't, we wait till next year to get another quarterback, that he will say, I gave him every opportunity in the world to show us that he could be the quarterback, and we have the tools around him. But I'm convinced that if we had someone who was a quicker, Rudolph said in the Miami game, he said, I didn't really do anything, but he made decisions quicker and he got the ball out quicker. I am confident he wouldn't have done what happened in the Jets game or the Bears game, and I guarantee you the game plan would have been a little bit different in the Indy game, and we'd be sitting here at 4-1 or 3-2, and we wouldn't be talking about, well, how's our GM, how's our coach? Because we know our defense is going to be doing good, so it all falls on Levis, and I'm just worried about how long it goes. I think Ridley's comments are going to be right there of the dam starting to break with the locker room.
Thank you, Bob.
So that's what I had to say.
Yeah, you could talk about the if and that, and I did, right? I was the guy yesterday saying, if you're Brian Callahan, you're trying to sell to the locker room. We're 1-4, but look at the razor's edge of those games that they led or were tied in the fourth quarter, and they've only won one of the four. They've had one egg that they laid. But Teron made this point, and I do agree with Jared on he emphasized this yesterday in the counter to that statement, and that is they have caught some big breaks in the schedule and not taken advantage of that. The Jets have issues. They weren't able to beat the Jets. The Bears, even though they have gotten better each week, that's a game they should have won, and it was a rookie quarterback in his first game. He played horrible. Right, he did, and he's gotten better since then. But they missed a chance to catch him before he started figuring things out. And they've gotten huge breaks in the last 3 weeks with the injuries to the Packers, the Dolphins, and the Colts. And they didn't really take advantage of that. So the degree of difficulty is only going to get greater now when they start playing some top-level teams.
We have the full compensation for Amari Cooper, according to Adam Schefter. The Browns receive a 2025 third-round pick and a 2026 seventh-round pick. The Bills receive Amari Cooper and a 2025 sixth-round pick. So the Browns, basically, they get a third-round pick for Amari Cooper.
Right.
Let's think about it
a little bit of a swap of lower picks. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really a third is the
right.
Is the
So Devontae Adams went for a third that becomes a second. That could become a second, if I recall that correctly. And Amari Cooper goes for a third. So we're now, the price is being set for receivers at the trade deadline.
All right, GM Derek, wide receiver talent evaluator. What is the difference in your mind between Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins? Not for the compensation of a pick, but just as the player. How much better is Cooper than D-Hop in your mind at this stage of each guy's career?
I think that Amari Cooper's still a legitimate high-end playmaker in this league. I think, and he's a number one receiver. I think Hop is a number two receiver. And on some teams, he may be.
Cooper is a little younger, but not. But he is 30.
He's 32. Yeah. But you've seen
I think D-Hop is 32. 32. Okay.
But Amari Cooper can get down the field. He can exploit you down the field. Hop is not at that point anymore where he can exploit you down the field. Can you get him down the field by design? Yeah, you can do that.
So he's clearly worth more.
Yeah, he's
than
clearly,
D-Hop, you think, on the market.
He's clearly, if you're just saying all things are even, he's clearly worth more. But as I've always said, you're only worth as much as the market tells you. So if a team comes up to the Titans that are in need, desperate need, they may give up a third round pick because they think adding D-Hop,
he's the best guy left.
Yeah, he will push us over the edge.
615-737-1025. We're seeing teams at the bottom of the standings. We're about 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. They're not waiting. The Raiders have traded Devontae Adams. The Browns have traded Amari Cooper. We'll certainly see more. I wonder if the Titans get into the mix sooner
After
rather
this
than
Bills
later.
game, if they don't win this Bills game, yeah, they're gonna be in the mix.
I wonder what the Chiefs
They're gonna be in the
think
mix
too, because they have an obvious need.
The team I mentioned when you were downstairs, Willie, at the beginning of the show, that seems like a fit on paper is the Pittsburgh Steelers for DeAndre.
Look for the
Hopkins.
Chargers as well.
All right. Well, we're starting a bidding war on our program.
That honestly is the key to getting the price up.
For DeAndre Hopkins. So any GMs that are listening, you call us. We'll help you broker a deal. 615, that's the number, by the way. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, it's time for our weekly conversation with Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea. The Commodores coming off of another impressive win at Kentucky. We'll discuss that with Clark and more coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Really, Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. Our guest on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea, was at Bridgestone Arena on Thursday for the Predators home opener. Clark, I thought you waved that towel quite expertly. I give you an A+ for your towel waving skills.
Well, I appreciate that. I felt like had I waved it a little bit better, we would have gotten off the post at the end, and those pucks would have gone in the net. So I got to take responsibility over my part in that. And if given the chance again, I'll make sure I wave those pucks in at the end. We have every
bit of confidence in you to do that. Now, Clark, tell me if you think this question is ludicrous, because I did pose this to Willie and Derek yesterday when we were talking about your team's win against Kentucky over the weekend. Of course, the win against Alabama was momentous, but I felt like the win against Kentucky was not that far off in terms of importance, because of it proved that your program has staying power. You were the talk of the football world last week after taking down Alabama. You did a lot of interviews. Diego Pavia did a lot of interviews. There was a lot of attention on your program because of what you did against Alabama, and you played another solid game against Kentucky, again, proving that your program did not win a fluke game against the Crimson Tide. Do you feel like I'm off base here by thinking that the Kentucky game holds just as much importance as the Alabama win?
Well, I'm going to give you a really good coach's response and just say they all count one, and that makes them all important. But I honestly, I think it's like, we kind of feel like each week is a prove it week. I mean, there's just not a moment where you ever feel like you've arrived, and it's I don't know. It's probably part of the really healthy aspect of kind of being on a team that goes through these season-long journeys, but also one that just doesn't allow you to maybe always get the big picture perspective. We just reset so quickly. But I was certainly proud of the focus the team had in the week. I think for those that don't actually get to be in the building, it's easy to assume that we would somehow be distracted, and I get that. But the truth is, we expected to win against Alabama. We delivered. We celebrated it. We understood kind of the magnitude of the moment and the marker it serves as to what this program can accomplish. But there was no part of that Sunday or Tuesday practice in the Kentucky week that felt like there were lingering, celebrations, and we were focused and dialed in. I thought we played to strategy on Saturday. The game kind of played out how we thought it would. Was really proud of the focus of the team. I think, especially in a chippy and emotional environment, one of the things that really made that a challenging game. Not only was it on the road, not only was it night in a tough environment, but Kentucky was coming off a bye week, and they had obviously a big win against Ole Miss on the road and had every reason to be ready to play that game, and they were. So there's a lot for us to learn from that and to take, but it's all about how you apply it forward. No different than Alabama. It's like, what's the meaning of the Kentucky game? How do we leverage it? How do we amplify it? How do we grow from it? And how quickly can we shift our attention to Ball State, which is what we've already done.
Clark, one thing that has helped your team win its past two games is you've significantly cut down on penalties, just 3 penalties against Alabama and 5 against Kentucky. What's gone into making your team more disciplined over these past couple of weeks?
I think that the team's maturing. A lot of times, they believe in their skill. They believe in their effort too. I mean, I think we understand internally that we have a good, skilled, tough team. That doesn't mean we're the most skilled, but we're a good team. And sometimes when you have too much confidence in that area, sometimes you think you can play the game how you want to play it, and you can get away with it. And obviously, we've been taught that lesson a few times, both with respect to the focus we need in our process and the detail we need in our process to be detailed in the way we play on Saturday, and then also in playing a clean game. Because playing a clean game is about playing to our strategy. And we used the post Missouri bye to really spend time on what this needs to look like for us to get over the hump and get the breakthrough that we were so close to at Missouri, but fell short, and a lot of that had to do, we were, I think, six times 3 and out, and not including the kneel outs there that got us to overtime. We were, we too many yards in penalties, some breakdowns defensively that were costly. So, just spending the time, like teaching the team and showing them, where this has really hurt us, and then making it a point of emphasis at the position level, because I think that those echo chambers are the most important. That's where the message really gets home, is when they're surrounded by those messages at the position level. It makes it more effective, and we just got aligned on it. And not to say that, that's, we might have a sloppy game ahead of us at some point. This team is focused. They understand the importance of it, and they're going to be attentive to those details. Certainly we train it, but they'll be attentive to it on Saturday as well.
We'll talk with Clark Lee, Vanderbilt's head football coach, coming off a victory versus Kentucky 20-13. Now, Coach, first, how is Miles Capers? He's one of your leaders on that defense, has 25 tackles, a sack and a half, and a pressure. But how is he this week?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you asking. That was a scary moment, and credit to our medical staff and the University of Kentucky's medical team too. That they took every precaution. When you're dealing with a neck injury, you want to make sure that you're not leaving anything to chance. I knew on the field that he had all the feeling in his extremities. He was doing okay. He was emotional and scared. Because he basically experienced whiplash and essentially has a neck sprain that in the moment on the field, it was scary, but I sensed that they were being cautious, and all the measures they took were to make sure that if there was anything that could be damaged further, that they weren't going to allow the process to getting him evaluated do that. So the credit to them, and again, a first-class operation. They were efficient in how they got him looked at and got the pictures taken. I appreciated the way they grabbed his family and allowed them to participate, because obviously that's so important in those moments for peace of mind for his parents. And he was back on the sideline with us at the end of the game, which is awesome. So he's doing well. He didn't practice today. I think that it's not out of the question that he could be back practicing in the next couple of days, and that he could be suited up and ready to play for us on Saturday. And so hopeful for that, but obviously just glad to have him around, and that it wasn't something more significant.
Now, does it say about your defense that now they're starting to figure it out? Obviously, Kentucky had a bye the week before playing you guys, and you still managed to hold this team to 13 points, and it was a struggle for them moving the ball down the field. Was it so much of how they tried to play the game, or is your defense starting to figure things out and starting to grow?
Well, anytime you have point limitation defensively, I think the first thing you got to credit is your offense for maintaining possession of the ball and limiting the opponent opportunities. That was a short game. It felt a little bit like an NFL game, because both teams were kind of playing to that strategy. I felt like, as far as Kentucky's approach, obviously they did a really nice job of scouting, both self-scouting. So some of the things that we had seen as tendencies, didn't carry over. But also, I thought particularly in the run game, they found ways to kind of get space. And really their whole objective is, to stay ahead of the chains and be in, a third and fourth down and goes. So I thought they were able to do that to a point. We were patient enough to lead to all scheduled snaps and build the stops. It felt like, ultimately, I thought early on maybe they had the physical edge on us, but I think once we settled into the game, I think we started to play to our identity as well. So to answer your question, I mean, I feel like we got their best shot. And, one of the things we wanted to make sure is that we weren't giving up the big post that they run so effectively. I thought we did a nice job of kind of taking those throws away. I think our group is maturing. I think we are getting better. I think they're learning how to play the game together with communication and detail and alignment and execution. And winning defense comes down to the margins, comes down to the inches, comes down to the landmarks and the vision points and all those things, the leverages. And the further and the deeper we understand those things about our scheme, the more we can anticipate and actually use the clues the offense give us each snap to get to our technique faster than the opponent. And that's when defense becomes really fun. When you see guys taking the right angles, breaking ahead of the ball, and again, generating stops, generating turnovers, and flying around having fun. So we're on our way. I think this will be an important week for us because there's still elements, there's still snaps from Saturday that not everyone's on the same page. And, that it didn't cost us like it could have cost us against Kentucky, but it will cost us if we don't get that fixed. That's been our focus this week, and we're looking to play a really clean game on Saturday.
Clark Lee is with us. And Clark, I know you saw Hal Gill and Lindsey Raleigh last week. You'll be happy to know that Hal was dialed in, and his phone was a little bit ahead of my feed. I was sitting in the back with Vanderbilt graduate Max Hurst, but I heard Hal from a row ahead of me going, throw it. So I could tell he was and he was like 3 seconds ahead of me. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. What's going on? So we were very dialed in on the bus and the plane watching the end of the game. You'll be happy to know. But I want to ask you about a couple of guys on your team. First, kicker is so important. You watched Vanderbilt before you ever attended Vanderbilt. You played there, and as the Vanderbilt kicker, there's going to be a lot of games where big kicks have to be made. And I've been really interested to watch Brock Taylor because he's hit some huge kicks like he did on Saturday. But I'm most impressed with he's missed a couple, and like a closer in baseball, if you blow a save, you've got to come back and make the next kick. He has really bounced back well, and he deserves the accolades he's getting here.
Well, let me go back to Hal Gill for a second, because I think that's actually more important. When we get this will be off the call, Willie, but I just need to know, how much was he yelling at me? I want to know how much he was texting me.
I think the play I was thinking, he was imploring Diego Pavia to get rid of the ball, but as I pointed out after I figured out, I was like, they're trying to run the clock here. You don't throw the ball away, the clock stops. Come on, Hal, you're a high school quarterback here.
What's funny about that, Willie, too, is that Diego came to me right before that snap. We spend a ton of time on situational football. We teach it, we train it, we practice it every week. Just some one-off situations that is meant to try to create, a smart teams win, is what we say. And also it helps me because in all these situations, that's the chess match actually, and it becomes the fun part, but also really challenging in the moment to try to process all the things that may or may not happen. And right before that snap, I want to say, I forget the sequence. Maybe we had taken a timeout. I can't remember specifics, but we were on the sideline. And right before he ran out, he came up to me and said, "Coach, if I get pressure, I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to take a sack." And I just said to him, "Hey, listen, that's great. Just minimize the amount of yards lost, because what you don't want to do is end up with a huge chunk loss, and now you're trying to flip the field with your punt." Well, it was a rollout, and there was nowhere else to go. So I think we lost 11, 15 yards on that snap, which is unfortunate. But what he did, keeping the clock running, was huge, because the other thing that happened coming out of that play was they reset the clock at 3 minutes and started it ball ready to play. So, anytime you get to a closely contested game and those seconds tick away when you have the lead, those are huge plays. And so, it was a smart moment. Again, I think to do it over again, if we could vertically escape and minimize that loss, that would be great. Obviously, it worked out in our favor, so no harm, no foul. With respect to Brock, I think this is I think in the spectrum of a kicker's career, there's no elite kicker in the world that hasn't made some and missed some. And I think when your sample size is so small, it's really easy, that pendulum swings really quick, I think, externally, so it's like, is he elite? Is he, does he not make the important kick when he needs to make it? I think what you're seeing is just the growth of a young player who's learning to find consistency, but that we believe in, and he believes in himself. And sometimes I can remember playing as a kid, playing sports, and I would try so hard and things would get, Derek doesn't relate to this at all. And Willie, you probably don't either, because this is just me and Adam. We had guys
don't do yourself the disservice by comparing your athletic prowess to my lack of athletic prowess. Don't sell yourself that short.
I've never seen you out on the court or on the field, so I didn't want to make assumptions. But, one of the things about my youngest kid, baby Jack, is like, he doesn't care. He just wants to go play, and he doesn't think about it. He doesn't let it bother him. If he makes a shot, if he misses a shot, he takes the next shot. And that is the healthiest approach you can have as a competitor. And that's what kind of defines Brock too. It's like, most of us would let those misses just eat away at us, but it's not that he's not bothered by it. He just knows that it's important that he lets it go. And I think the biggest thing that he knows is that our team has his back. We support him. We believe in him, and he's our kicker. So the thing that we can do is put him out to kick the next one. And what we know is he's going to be mentally ready and physically ready to put it through. And he's done that the last 2 weeks in big ways. And I think, again, you got to credit him with our success too. I'm really proud of him.
Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lee joining us as he does every Tuesday. Clark, thanks so much for chatting. We'll talk next week. Good luck against Ball State this weekend.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Yep.
Vanderbilt hosts Ball State at First Bank Stadium this weekend, Saturday at 6 o'clock. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Donk, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Okay, time to tell you about Loan Pronto. Lower mortgage rates are here, and that means Loan Pronto can put you in a position to be on better financial footing if you are a homeowner, because the mortgage rates are lower. You can use this opportunity, for example, to get cash out and wipe out your credit cards. So you've got some high-interest credit cards that are killing your monthly budget. You can do a cash-out refi, get thousands of dollars out of your home's equity, and use that to pay off that high-interest credit card bill to zero, or any other high-interest debt that might be hurting you. If you act now, you could even skip your next couple of house payments, so purchase loans are available as well. So call now and find out if Loan Pronto can help you, because they do it very efficiently and quickly. There's so much less paperwork, appraisals, things like that. They do it right. Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLS consumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stoneman and Company coming up at the top of the hour here from Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators host the Seattle Kraken, looking for their first win of the season. They have not started a season with 3 consecutive regulation losses since 2006. As we mentioned earlier, that team went on to win 51 games, so it worked out for that team. But the Predators certainly want to get off the schneid. You know what? They're not the only team with high expectations that is struggling to start the season. The Edmonton Oilers, who got off to a terrible start last year, are 0-3 for the first time since Connor McDavid's rookie year. The Colorado Avalanche are also 0-3 to start the season.
And giving up bushels of goals, both of those teams.
They've allowed, the Avalanche have been outscored 20-10. The Edmonton
it's interesting. Edmonton, remember, famously last year was horrendous.
started 2-9-1.
2-9-1 and fired the coach and still got to within one game of maybe one bounce of winning the whole thing. So it is a process. It's always interesting to me, though. There's that process that every team's got to go through with the changes, the new guys, and getting everything together. Because in preseason, like we see in the NFL sometimes, you don't play a lot. You don't go all out. You don't want to get anybody hurt, but at the same time, you know there's the price to pay, and that is you're going to be a little, as Andrew Burnett likes to say, summer hockey-ish, loose, not together, not cohesive. It takes time to iron that out. The teams that could do it quicker are going to get off to the good start.
I believe Seattle is coming off of a shutout loss to the Dallas Stars on Sunday.
Kraken gave up 2 goals in 13 seconds in the first period.
Sounds familiar.
And Dallas shut them out from there. Dallas has had back-to-back home shutouts since Nashville really put a lot of heat on them in the opening game last Thursday. So it's tough. Seattle is a very deep team. They don't have superstars at the top of the lineup, current superstars.
No.
But they are very good from lines 1 through 4 and all 3 D pairs. It's an interesting team. It's different. Like, for example, Avalanche, top-heavy. Oilers, top-heavy. Seattle, they don't have the stars at the top, but they are much, much deeper.
We'll see if the Predators can get their first win of the season tonight against the Kraken at 7. All coverage here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful and blessed Tuesday. Peace.